Welcome to the Biz to Biz podcast, your number one source for all business news.
Hey everybody, welcome to B2B Vault. And today we're here with Mark Wagner of Disputifier, a chargeback company that helps merchants win chargebacks, defend chargebacks, get chargeback notifications, and all kinds of other good stuff. So welcome to the podcast. Mark's second time with us.
What's going on? Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, so, what's going, we always like to talk about like topical things that's going on with chargebacks. And obviously, there's a lot of fraud. That's number one. Yep. Number two, that's things that merchants are constantly worried about. Yep. Getting more approvals.
Yep.
Another thing merchants worry about. And then the big thing is the click to cancel. And the FTC put out a rule, a hard rule, after California passed their law. And, how is that going to affect merchants in the SaaS business, recurring transaction businesses where people are getting billed for like lawn service every month or pool service or a SaaS product? So how's that going to shake out? What's your thoughts on that?
We'll see. We will see. I think a lot of businesses initially are probably not going to do it compliantly. But a lot of businesses need to be aware there's some pretty significant penalties. And it's per instance, which is like crazy, right? So obviously, businesses are just going to have to fight with increased churn, on their subscriptions. And another thing with the click to cancel is like, traditionally, if you go to cancel a software, like you ever installed like Adobe, like Photoshop or something like that?
Right.
And every time you go to cancel it, it's crazy. They're like, okay, no, don't cancel. We'll give it to you for 50% off. They have like a 3-step flow to like help prevent, cancellations, which as a business owner, I get, right? Churn is very expensive, but that's just not allowed anymore. Or at least you have to have permission to even give someone an offer to, to save their subscription at a lower price or something, which is crazy to me. So, we're just ultimately increase churn.
Yeah, I think more or less they just want it to be like as easy as it was to sign up. But I noticed I've tried to cancel something recently. It was like 200, it was like $150 a month. They're like, oh, well, we'll give you, do you want to go down to the next level? Do you want to go down to the next one? I was like, no, I don't want this anymore. It wasn't that hard, but I don't think they're going to complain too much about that. I think if you don't let people cancel, that's going to be a whole nother ball game.
100%. Yeah. I mean, any business that's not letting you cancel or they're making you jump through 1,000 hoops, like doesn't really deserve to be in business. Right. So I think ultimately it's a good thing that we're, just helping out the consumers and making that easier. But ultimately, businesses have a lot to worry about. And this is just one more thing to add to the puzzle.
And I think in the last few years, probably since COVID, a lot of businesses have gotten into recurring transactions as a way to increase revenue.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially the ones that rely heavily on online marketing, just because, costs have skyrocketed. People that do Facebook ads and all sorts of stuff like that, Google ads, it's just not what it was 5 years ago. So they really need some sort of recurring revenue on the back end to just be able to acquire customers profitably.
So, I guess we're probably going to see a lot of, I know a lot of people cancel subscriptions all the time, especially like TV subscriptions. Yeah. But I wonder how it's going to affect like companies who actually have you like in a contract, like the phone company, because I know they were fighting it. They're like, well, we have you in a contract. You can't just cancel, even though it's a recurring bill.
Yeah.
Or the electric company. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a real good point for sure. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of stuff plays out if they're enforcing it for certain businesses instead of, the phone companies and the contracts and stuff like that. But I think it all just comes down to we have to like wait a little bit of time and kind of see who the FTC goes after for infringing upon the click to cancel rule, and maybe we'll get some sort of clarity in the suits that follow, although the businesses that get involved in that are certainly not going to love it.
And from the standpoint of like chargeback notifications and things like
Yep,
that, one of the things I follow a lot of forums on like
yep.
Reddit and on Facebook. And one of the things I see a lot of merchants, especially low dollar, low ticket merchants, they feel like they're getting scammed now because they have RDR turned on and they become like a target for scammers. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really seen that across the portfolio, but maybe a big enough company where, they're able to find that could be relevant. I think that in general, there's two types of scammers, right? There's like the fraudulent people in which it's like a fraud ring, like typically, overseas, like that kind of stuff where they're banging like stolen credit cards and stuff like that through the website. That sort of stuff. I mean, it shouldn't ever get to the RDR phase if you have proper like fraud screening tools in place for like that initial transaction. And then the other side of things would be a real customer. And if a real customer purchases from you and then they charge back and they get an RDR, you should block that customer, right? You should
Right.
not take any more orders from that customer. You should block their email, their address, all that kind of stuff. So I think if you have the right tools in place, it wouldn't really be an issue. But if you're just kind of like letting it go through, like, oh, they got an RDR, and you're not tracking that or blocking them from purchasing again, then you could definitely run into some issues.
I've even seen like retailers now where people are trying to return things at the retail store and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, you returned too much. We're not taking stuff back from you anymore.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's funny. I mean, there's return rings, like it goes deep. It goes deep for sure. Even Amazon and stuff like that, their targets, there's fake tracking labels that people will send to be like, oh, I returned this, but they didn't. I mean, it goes deep for sure. There's people that make their whole living based off of just, scamming small businesses and big businesses for that matter, which is really sad. But, it allows people like me to, make a living fighting those guys.
So do you see like an uptick on merchants getting more like is the chargeback ratio trending up or is it like staying pretty much the same?
In general, or I don't think
Yeah,
we
like
ever,
in general, do we see like a higher percentage of chargebacks or are there
yeah,
particular industries that are getting hit harder?
of course. Yeah. I mean, since COVID, chargeback rates have been going up, right? And as of recently, they've really been going up, which I think is mainly due so to the holidays. Obviously, right now,
Right.
there were a lot of businesses that sold a lot in November, December. A lot of people that maybe like weren't happy with their product, whatever, and maybe charging that back right about now. So chargeback rates are increasing, especially in January, as you kind of get those trailing chargebacks from Q4. But from a broader perspective, the past couple of years, chargebacks have just been increasing and increasing and increasing every single year. And I think that's just due to consumers getting more knowledgeable about the fact that they can kind of abuse the system and just really get a free refund whenever they want. And just the lack of education around the fact that that's illegal. And there's obviously no consequences for these consumers, which is unfortunate. But hopefully we can sort of even the playing field a little bit for the
It
merchants.
would be it would be good if like the chargeback companies had a blacklist of people who do too many chargebacks and kind of
Yeah.
shared that across their network. It would kind of
Yeah.
the processors could be like, okay, yeah, here's somebody, they're doing too many chargebacks.
Yep.
We're blocking them out of our system, you
Yeah,
know.
for sure. Some software exists like that. We have a variation of that, but I mean, ultimately, the fraudsters, like the real like the professional ones, they're always just going to like try to get around it, right? Whether that's spinning up new addresses, new emails, like all sorts of stuff. They're just going to make it really hard to trace back a chargeback to that new order, But the normal ones, I mean, yeah, you can for sure use technology to do that. I think it should be distributed across processors better, like you were saying. I think every processor should just have this master blacklist. And once your personal, I think businesses have a chargeback ratio they need to keep in check. I think consumers should too. I think consumers, if they're charging back more than 2-3% of their transactions, that's an
Right.
issue.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. The other thing, drop shippers are really having a hard time now getting merchant accounts.
Yeah.
And we get contacted by tons of people all the time doing drop shipping.
Yep.
And we tell them, like, if you can't get the goods to your consumer within 10 days, the likelihood of you getting approved by a credit card processor today is slim to none.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's sad, definitely. I mean, these guys have nowhere to turn, They're getting turned away from Shopify payments, from Stripe, and they're going to traditional merchant accounts and, ultimately sometimes not getting accepted there either. But we see drop shippers that do it right, and we see drop shippers that do it wrong, There's certainly
Right.
ones that do it right. They get quicker shipping times, they're able to run a business with low chargebacks, but majority don't,
I
unfortunately.
lost your
Majority are,
thing.
are just not running the best businesses.
This restart required.
Oh no.
Hey, Mark, I can't hear you anymore.
Yeah, but good to go now.
Yeah, we're good. So we were talking about drop shippers. So, a lot of the processors, that's the first thing they ask: how many days to get the product.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I mean, there's certainly drop shippers that do it right. There's drop shippers that do it wrong. Across the board, I mean, it's a beginner business model. So a lot of the guys doing this, they're just not too familiar with how to run proper customer service teams, ship orders on time, deliver orders on time, the right shipping methods to use, where you want to ship from. There's Chinese New Year they got to worry about. All the factories, all the shipping companies are out for 2 weeks. I mean, right now of all times is like, it's not good, right? It's about to be Chinese New Year, which means if they're shipping from China, they're kind of screwed. So, I mean, these
Wow.
guys, they just like the beginner drop shippers, they're not in a good spot. But we do see guys that have been doing this for a couple of years. They've got their procedures in place. They know how to run a good drop shipping business, and they can do it without really high chargebacks. It's just by and by. I mean, it's a beginner business model, so you just attract people that just don't run the best businesses, unfortunately.
No, that's crazy. What do you think about the business model where merchants are selling like a high dollar, like hat or a t-shirt, and then they're running these sweepstakes? What do you think about that business model?
I think it's a terrible business model. I mean, there's certainly like a ton of risk associated with that business model. Sweepstakes in general just get a really, really bad reputation in the industry for good reason. A lot of people just use that as an excuse to, bill customers in very ambiguous ways that they may not disclose and all sorts of stuff. But by and by, if you're running like any type of giveaway promotion, like you buy something to get a prize and then the customer doesn't win the prize, you're just going to deal with really high chargebacks.
Yeah, we have a couple of clients. One guy gives away, like he was giving away one motorcycle. Now they give away two motorcycles every
Nice.
cycle. And they don't seem to get that. They get a few disputes, but
It's pretty
all
clean.
in all, I think that they're sending out like a good quality t-shirt,
Yep.
and a good quality hat. It's not like
Yep.
a $2
Yeah.
product.
Yeah.
So people are not,
They're not
and
mad.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're not mad. Plus, they sell other stuff,
Yeah.
other motorcycle related products.
Nice.
And, so like accessories, bags, leather, things
Yep.
like that.
A
And,
real business.
huh?
It's a real business then.
Yeah, it's a real business, but they pump a lot of people are just buying the t-shirt like, oh, I
Yep.
can win this motorcycle.
100%.
Or
Yeah.
win another guy like has one where you can win a Dodge Ram truck.
Nice. Nice.
So
That's great.
people are buying like the t-shirts and the hats and all this stuff from these clients, and it seemed to get like really popular during COVID
Yep.
for businesses to do that. And they use like, as long as they're using a third party service, the banks will approve it because the third party is basically controlling who the winner is.
Right.
And that way there's if they're in a state where they can't participate, it lets them know, or, and things like that. And they authenticate the user that they are over the age of 18 or 21,
right.
depending on the state, based on their credit card. They're able to figure that out. What other kind of business do you see any new business models popping up?
I mean, somewhat. There's always, I think there's always like different ways that people can market products for sure. But ultimately it feels like everyone's kind of doing the same stuff, It's like the same sorts of business models. Obviously there's a ton of like different ways to give value to your customer, right? Like, for example, we work with a ton of people that sell like nutraceuticals and things like that. And there's always new trendy ingredients, be it functional mushrooms or whatever they want to kind of, sell. So there's always like different kind of like ways to take it. But
at this time of the year, I'm sure it's a lot of like diet products, lose weight, right?
It seems like that's kind of losing some hype. Maybe consumers have kind of caught on to the fact that you just have to eat less. You can't take a pill to lose weight. But it seems like focus and energy are like the main things that people are kind of selling nowadays to consumers for good reason. I drink a lot of coffee myself, so supplements make sense.
Get out the espresso machine, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Good jolt. No, definitely. I see a lot of different, focus products, health products, keto products, different vitamins, supplements. That always around the beginning of the year, those businesses like kick off and try to
100%.
sell a lot. And I also see, a lot of telemedicine out there for like Ozempic and Zepbound and all of that. And, surprisingly enough, like we have a few merchants doing that, and there hasn't been that many chargebacks.
No, it's clean. Yeah. It's really interesting how that works, but I think it's just because like there's a lot, like you have to talk to someone, you have to get a prescription, technically. So I think that may contribute to it. Plus it's like, it skews older. A lot of chargebacks come from younger consumers because, they have less money, they're more aware of the system, and they care less about the consequences. Whereas like older consumers are a little bit more wise, and they know that they can't just charge back everything that they don't want to pay for. So I think that's probably why the telehealth skews to lower chargeback rates. But also,
and those merchants have to be, legit script certified.
They are. Yeah, 100%. It has a higher barrier of entry, which I feel just means that it's more qualified operators running these businesses,
Oh, definitely. There's definitely that's what's going on there. And what about like, we get a lot of people coming to us trying to get into the travel space. Yeah. But they don't understand like that they have to be like a certified travel agent.
Yeah.
They need to have IATA and things like that. And then they get very frustrated with the whole process of getting approved.
It sounds like the worst business to ever run. I'm sorry. I can't. We work with a lot of travel merchants, and I just feel bad for them.
You help one of my merchants. You got their chargebacks down pretty low now. So.
There we go. Travel merchants get hit with so many chargebacks. It's incredible. It's really sad. I can't imagine they have high margins. So all those chargebacks must really eat up.
Yeah, they work on people don't realize like they work on a small margin. They're just getting a small commission. It might be 10 or 20%. And you think that sounds like a lot, but if you're dealing with a $50 item and you're making $5 or $10 on it, that's not a lot.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree.
So if you were going to start an e-commerce business, what kind of e-commerce business would you start?
I would definitely want to make sure it's something that has a lot of value to the consumer, but also something that's not a one-time purchase. I think one-time purchases are very difficult nowadays. It would probably be something in the supplement space because we see a lot of supplement brands that grow really, really fast. And something that's like kind of on the cutting edge. Like, for example, there's a new ingredient that pops up every year. Last year, I feel like it was colostrum, which is kind of like collagen, but a little bit different. So, we saw really, really big colostrum brands go from nothing to nine figures a year. So it would either be something that's like just blowing up ingredient wise or something that's a little bit less discovered yet. And then you just try to market and educate the consumers. And then, as a result, grow the company. So it would be something I'd have to dive into the science and figure out, what people are missing. That's a really good supplement. But it would probably be something along those lines.
All right. Are you a big
Not drop
sports fan?
shipping.
Are you a
What's
big
that?
sports fan?
Yeah, absolutely.
So who's your favorite football team?
So I'm from North Carolina. So I gotta go with the Panthers, unfortunately. But I also live in Texas right now. So we got the Panthers and the Cowboys, At one point, one of those teams is gonna be good. And
You think Jerry Jones can get Deion Sanders to be the coach?
we will see. We will see. Um, But yeah, it's hard to say for sure. I'm a big hockey fan as well. Watch a lot of hockey. I'm not sure about you.
No, we
But
have the Florida Panthers. We did good last year.
oh, you did great last year. Absolutely. You got the
Won
best
the
team
cup.
pretty much.
Yeah, they won the Stanley Cup
Yeah, yeah. It can't
with
get
a
much
heart
better
attack.
than that. But
My favorite football team is the Miami Dolphins.
of
You
course,
know,
yeah.
and then I'm waiting for Unrivaled actually starts tonight, the 3-on-3 women's basketball league, but
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark's not playing, so
Oh no.
yeah, she's not in the 3-on-3 league. I just hope that like these players, I wish they would pay the women's basketball players more or figure
Yeah.
out how to get the league up because
Yeah.
they have to go play overseas and a lot of them get hurt. And I hope nobody
Yeah,
gets hurt in this 3-on-3 game.
for
Yeah,
sure.
they're playing all the games in Miami, but you can't even get tickets. It's
No
completely
way.
sold out at it's at a tiny
Wow.
arena. Yeah,
You would think
tickets.
they're going to get paid more soon, It feels like WNBA is kind of on the map now because of Caitlin Clark. So I think hopefully salaries will follow.
All right. Let's see. One last thing. What would if you the we'll discuss like card present chargebacks because that's not something any chargeback companies really figured out how to do anything about. But if you had to give a good piece, some good advice to every person out there, let's say they're getting ready to start their business or
Yeah.
they're getting ready to do e-commerce for the first time, what would
Yeah,
be 2 or 3 pieces of advice you would give them to those merchants?
for sure. I mean, of course, I'm in the business of chargebacks. So, like, when it comes down to chargebacks, obviously you want to be aware, but ultimately, what that boils down to is like the point of a business is to provide value to your customers, right? So as long as you get that piece down and then you get the customer service piece down and you can do those two things, then you're going to have a good business, right? You provide value and then you provide really good service. And if you can just nail those two things down, then you've done 90% of the job, right? That's easier said than done, of course. But ultimately, like that's what it means to run a good business. And those are the businesses that have low chargebacks. Those are the businesses that make a lot of money because when you provide value and you provide good service, people tell their friends. And then, it kind of compounds, it snowballs upon itself. So I know it's like stupid. It's like, well, of course you like have good service and like provide value, but like what does that actually look like for your business model? How can you just delight your customers? How can you make them happier? And then ultimately, if you do that effectively for a long enough period of time, then you never have to worry about getting new customers. They just come in your door because people tell their friends when they have a really good experience. So I would say that is my best advice, although it sounds really basic.
Yeah. One thing I always tell merchants, we give them a little guide. Says,
Yeah.
what kind of things you have to have on your website, your basics, privacy policy, terms and conditions, return and refund policies, have your contact information on there and answer your phone. I tell
Yeah.
people answering service is not like super expensive. You
Yep.
can find one that like answers the phone for doctors' offices or attorneys. They're
Yep.
usually pretty cheap instead of a, answering service like company. And
Yep.
that way, if someone calls up at 10 o'clock at night, they can just take a message. Yes, someone's going to call you
Yep.
between 9 and 5 versus they go to their phone and go chargeback.
100%. Yeah.
So that's the piece of advice I give people is, figure out that it's so important, your checkout process on your website and your customer service.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Well,
Having
awesome.
those check boxes.
Definitely got to get those. Can't forget those.
Now, you can't forget the check boxes on the checkout page, right?
Absolutely.
All
Awesome.
right. So if people want to get in touch, want more information about Disputifier, you can go to disputifier.com. We'll post the link. And also we're a reseller. We work with Mark. You need a merchant account, you need Disputifier. We can hook the whole thing up for you and get you taken care of for the whole thing. Any last words, Mark?
Just want to thank you for having me on, and I look forward to doing number 3 pretty soon here. I'll get a neon sign. It's going to be great.
Okay, we're going to send you the info so you can get a big Disputifier neon sign.
Amazing. Let's do it. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Thank you to Mark, and peace out, everybody. And for all you e-commerce merchants, I hope that we provided you with some great information today on B2B Vault.
Amazing.
Lord, peace out. Like, subscribe, and share.